What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Max Marquee Matchup. It is yours truly, DMac Week 316. Happy to talk to you guys once again here on Win the Day TV. We are back here with a great Week 9 divisional matchup. Look, it's November football. It's time for things to go ahead and get kicked off, and we're bringing it the NFL season to a different gear that I'm very excited for. Got two great guests representing the Lions and Packers today. To start out, bringing a new guest here, Tyler from Wisco Fanatics. Happy to bring you in. Happy to have you onto the channel, man. Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And, as far as the Lion side of this, we are going to have a returning guest who I'm excited to bring onto the stage. A guy that you guys had, early this season, had a really good experience as well. Michael Scott over from Pride of Detroit. Happy to bring you back into the, Max Marquee Matchups. How you doing today, man?
Oh, man, I'm good, man. I appreciate you guys having me back. Apparently, I didn't do too bad last time I was here.
No, you did a good job, and you also hit on your, best bets as well, even though I know that's not necessarily the realm that you operated. So shout out to you for being able to get that done, man. That was a really good call from you.
Yeah, I've been having a pretty good season so far. We over at Pride of Detroit, we kind of do we have tally site, I think it's what it's called, and so we do a couple bets here and there. And so I've been all right. I've been all right against the spread and and things like that. So it's been a good year for me.
Look, Miko, it's just a little bit getting more comfortable with it, and a little bit waiting in the water. And there you go, dip your toe in. It feels all right.
Exactly.
Absolutely, man. Speaking of which, look. In my opinion, this is an excellent matchup, and it's one that I was actually looking at weeks ahead to because you guys are two of the teams that I had pegged coming into the season that would be, in my opinion, at the top as far as NFC contenders list. I thought the NFC North could be and has turned into the best division in the National Football League, starting with you guys at the top of this division as well, because of both both sides of the ball for both of your teams as well. So I'm looking forward to this, and specifically as it pertains to, we'll start as far as the Packers and kind of an overall review. Obviously, this has been based around what Jordan Love has been able to bring you guys into his era. Obviously, we know what Brett Favre handed off to Aaron Rodgers handed off to Jordan Love. And as a Chiefs fan, there was kind of a little bit of introduction to Jordan Love that maybe wasn't the first one, but he was a guy that you could see had the tools as a young prospect, was able to bring things together, and the maturing process that has happened in times that he was sit, and then what you brought to the table last year, in which it was maybe a little bit of a slow start, but really caught fire the back half of the season, and obviously ended in a playoff run that was impressive as well. Jordan Love, talk to me about what he represents now coming into, the identity of the Green Bay Packers, especially under Matt LaFleur as well, being able to kind of craft the offense in the ways that he sees fit and, kind of have his, hands all over this franchise and be able to kind of have those two guys as the directionary pieces to start out, Tyler.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and that's probably something that we won't ever know the full extent to of how much Aaron Rodgers was willing to take input from Matt LaFleur as far as the offense was concerned. But it seems that Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur have a fantastic relationship, and we've had a lot of fun talking about all the different kinds of things that Matt LaFleur does with the offense, especially all the pre-snap motion and things of that nature. And even this season, which, and I'm sure we'll get to more of the quarterback stuff, but this season, even going from Jordan Love to Malik Willis at times for 2 games early in the season and for a big chunk of the second half against Jacksonville, not being able to have, a big drop off, even though there is a difference in arm talent. But for Matt LaFleur to be able to coordinate 2 different styles of quarterbacks, I think really speaks a lot to his coaching ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and LaFleur is somebody that I've looked at as one of the best offensive minds in the National Football League for years prior. But when you have a team that A, has seen some defensive improvements that they have, but also B, been able to be as flexible on the offensive side of the ball, that is a mark of a coach that understands how to get his team ready. That they didn't see, Jordan Love go out during last week's game and all of a sudden panic. They didn't see Jordan Love after the week 1 game go down and be like, oh, well, this is Malik Willis, who, was a bust with the Titans. What are we supposed to do with him? He said, hey, We understand what the game plan is going to be. Our wide receivers have to turn from an air raid attack to, hey, we're going to block and get some ability to get some quarterback run and get the job done. And that's a mark of a really great coach. So I think LaFleur is one of the best in the business right now, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do to keep you guys not only just winning this year, but just as a winning franchise throughout the National Football League as well. And obviously shifting gears to the Lions, Miko, we've been able to talk about this obviously in previous weeks. The changing culture that Dan Campbell has brought to the table this year has kind of been a little bit of a different test of that, obviously with the unfortunate Aiden Hutchinson injury. But in general, you guys stand at the top of the league in a different metric of simply point differential, because the way that you guys have dominated teams in recent weeks has been impressive to watch. Talk to me a little bit about maybe not necessarily I don't want to say a foreign concept, but being able to be just a team that goes out there and bludgeon teams is expected to do so on a week in and week out basis. The Detroit Lions right now look like an absolute machine.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a foreign feeling, right? It is one of those things where a lot of teams, like, again, no one rarely picks against their own team, right? Like, you expect your team to go in and have a good showing and things of that nature. But yeah, when you look at the Cowboys game or you look at the Titans game, and those games are just like complete blowouts and they're just like, they're so one-sided. It is something that's new for Lions fans, and it's something new for the city of Detroit in general. It's just, it's that like affirmation that you have arrived. Everything that Dan talked about in his, opening press conference of what he wanted this team to be and how he wanted them to go about playing football, they have been able to do under him leading the charge. So it's exciting, right? It's one of those things that it's easy to all of a sudden get to this point of, as a fan, like, you expect this, like you said, like it does start to become an expectation that you expect this team to come out and have a good showing, regardless of who's healthy, who's active on any given Sunday, or again, in the situation like Jameson Williams, like, even if someone is dealing with suspension, you still expect the other guys that are on the roster to step up and again, go out there and compete at a really high level. I think the drawback to that a little bit is that when there are, moments of difficulty or some type of opposition, it's being able to reconcile that, like, hey, this is what good teams have to deal with as well. As good as the Chiefs have been in so many years, they're undefeated. But if you've watched them play, and Mac, you would know this, like, they don't always look as good as they have in previous seasons. So that's also it just comes with the territory of having a really good football team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, no doubt about it. And I think that's a good way to talk about it. It's a fan adjustment. It's something that, I had to go through early and, in this Patrick Mahomes era of saying, okay, there's high expectations, but you're still going to have to struggle to get to those high expectations ultimately, and now have to deal with them. But the other thing I did want to ask you guys, again, talking about kind of the strength of this division in general, and then you guys kind of sitting atop of it, even despite the Vikings' incredibly hot start as well and all the hype that came around Caleb Williams coming to Chicago. Talk to me, and this is for both of you guys. You can answer it in whichever order you want to. Talk to me a little bit about competing for this division, this rivalry as it framed maybe in previous years, and now moving into what is an era that it feels like a little bit of equal footing that maybe it wasn't, previously as well for both of you guys. And now staring each other kind of down of saying, this is not only a race just to win this division, this is a race to be a 1 seed as far as the NFC playoff picture is concerned, and being the favorites to go to the Super Bowl out of this conference.
Yeah, I can say from a Lions fan's perspective, like, obviously it was one-sided for so many years, right? Whether it was Favre leading the charge, whether it was Rodgers leading the charge, it was always fairly one-sided. And it wasn't until like that last year that Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay where it started to feel like things were starting to tilt the other way. And so now, again, going back to like the expectation under Dan Campbell, it does feel more like a legitimate rivalry, right? Like, both of these are two really good teams. And so while the Lions were able to, I think it was sweep Aaron Rodgers in his last year in Green Bay, last year they split. And this year it's kind of stacked up the same way, where you look at both of these teams and you're like, man, they're both high powered offenses. They're both really tough and stingy defenses. And they have two head coaches that are just, again, different, but they still kind of have that same type of mindset. So it does, in a lot of ways, from a Lions fan's perspective, feel like a true rivalry outside of just the fact that they share the division with each other.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And it's weird to almost say thank you to the Lions for the way that Aaron Rodgers' last pass went. I was actually at that game that ended up, if the Packers won, they were in the playoffs, and if the Lions won, they were out. And Rodgers' last throw ended up being an interception. And then the following offseason, the Packers traded him. And looked like kind of a good deal for the Packers, and I'm not doing it to disparage Aaron Rodgers. He's the best player in our franchise's history, but it definitely has felt more like a rivalry, not the kind of rivalry that the Bears try to bring up with the Packers, even though they haven't beaten the Packers in 2018. And they're like, we're going to get you this year. And it's like, dude, you've been saying that every single year. Like, Aaron Rodgers literally signed over the ownership to Jordan Love. Like, beat us once before you're talking about sweeping us. So it is much more of a rivalry, and that's, I think, what inspired you to have the Packers-Lions be your matchup of the week. Is these are actually two really good football teams that have had each other's numbers over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you guys could stand in the center of the ring toe to toe and really be able to go after each other. And it's not necessarily where, hey, Aaron Rodgers moves on and the Lions are coming into this new era. Is the Lions going to be able to dominate everything? No, it's about, hey, these two teams feel confident in their quarterbacks, feel confident in their coaches because they are difference makers as well on the headset. They feel confident in the trenches. They feel confident in their weapons, etc., all the way down the roster, that they want to go out there and prove themselves to be at the top of not only this division, like I said, but this entire conference, because that's the level that you guys are operating at as well. So speaking of specifically this matchup in week 9, of course, and from a matchups perspective, I think this, obviously the Packers are dealing with a little bit of walking wounded. Obviously, Jordan Love coming off the groin injury that he had last week. Seems like he practiced in full. Seems like there's optimism for him to end up playing this game. And specifically, I want to talk about that Packers offense led by Jordan Love. And obviously, there is a level of volatility that's come with Jordan Love's game. That's just where he's different from, obviously Aaron Rodgers, where you guys have come with that, historically low interception rate to go with the high touchdown rate. Jordan Love brings that more variance, but I think that is a testament still to what he brings to the table and being able to access different areas of the field and create a lot of throws to what is an incredibly talented, I should say, weapon group, not just the wide receivers who we know about, but obviously Tucker Kraft, who stepped up, Josh Jacobs coming in, who's run the ball well when you guys have asked him to, and a solid offensive line as well. So talk to me a little bit about what you're looking for Jordan Love, assuming that he is going to play within this Matt LaFleur offense, being able to take advantage of what the Lions defense has kind of had to do without Aiden Hutchinson and being a little bit more aggressive and sending extra pressure at Jordan Love, and how he can handle those blitzes a little bit better than maybe he has in previous weeks.
Yeah, so Jordan Love has been limited yesterday and today. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but he was limited yesterday and today. Matt LaFleur is making it sound like it's going to be a game-time decision, but based on him practicing limited, I'm about 90% sure that he's going to play unless something changes between now and game time. But Jordan Love has kind of struggled under pressure this season, and I do think a solid amount of that, I'm not going to say all of it, has been due to limited mobility, like the Vikings game. The Vikings were sending tons of pressure at him. That was his first game back after his MCL injury. And same with last week. Last week he had the groin injury. He tried to gut through it, which I don't know how you can not respect it as a Packers fan. People are like, pull him out, put Malik Willis in, but then they also love Brett Favre would play through concussions. But there's a lot of contradiction going on as far as the Packers' last 3 quarterbacks have gone. But with that, if the Lions are going to be expectedly sending a lot more pressure to test Jordan Love's mobility, I would expect a lot more things happening in the short passing game. One of the plays that I have actually going to be breaking down today is Romeo Doubs running slants. It's almost an unstoppable play. But they do a lot of pre-snap motion and things like that to get guys moving around, like Christian Watson, like Tucker Kraft, like you brought up. Jaden Reed is a guy who's probably going to get some handoffs as well and just moving him around. And even Bull Melton once in a while is going to get the occasional carry. So it'll be an all-hands-on-deck thing to help Jordan Love out, depending on how mobile he is. And if he is mobile and able to move around the pack, like around the pocket, then I think you can see some more of those downfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's one of those things where LaFleur does a really good job at coordinating his offense, being able to give Jordan Love those answers, obviously, according to those weapons, and taking advantage of any of those opportunities that the other, team's defense may be a little bit weaker at. And shifting over, of course, to that Lions defense that's played, got to say, at a really good level. The upgrades that you guys have made, specifically in the secondary, in my opinion, have stood out. Obviously, in a post-Hutchinson world has been, highlighted even more, but specifically about your ability to really adjust and be able to deal with some difficulty from coverage standpoint and really turn guys over and really make it incredibly difficult on quarterbacks. So talk to me a little bit as far as the Lions, not just, adjusting without Aiden, I should say specifically, but just in general, what this matchup brings to the table and what you're going to be looking at of how you guys can attack the Packers offense.
Yeah, I think one of the things first and foremost that I'm going to be focused on is how the Lions decide to create pressure. Like you talk about Aiden not being there, and that's a big blow, and it has been a big blow to this Lions team, even though they've been able to win the last 2 games without him. It's still something that I think that the Lions are still trying to figure out is where can they create pressure. I think they had a good amount of hope in Josh Pascal, but he's been dealing with an illness and he's not going to play again this week. And so it does start to, put Aaron Glenn in a position where he is going to have to send more pressure. The thing is, though, it's not always been like the most successful thing for the Lions, right? Like Aaron Glenn choosing to blitz, especially blitzing his linebackers, has not always, went the way the Lions wanted to. I think what the Lions have in their front four as far as their defensive tackles, when you look at DJ Reader, Aleem McNeil, and Levi Onwuzurike specifically, like those 3 guys have been doing a great job of pushing the pocket from the middle, but they just haven't had anyone on the edges, like again, without Aiden and without Pascal being able to play, to really, close things in on the edges. So while, blitzing may seem like the answer, I think Aaron Glenn is probably going to have to tap into some of those secondary blitzes that he did. We started to see him do a lot late last year when, he had Ifeatu Melifonwu and Brian Branch blitzing all the time. So, we'll kind of get to it a little bit later, but I think like that's where you're going to have to see pressure be created to be able to make up for the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. But at the same time, to make things difficult for whether it's Jordan Love or Malik Willis back there is to really make him question, okay, is it a linebacker? Is it a safety? Is it a nickel? Like Amik Robertson has been really good at blitzing from the nickel spot. So you're going to have Aaron Glenn is going to have to be very, very creative when it comes down to how he's going to choose to disrupt this Packers offense. I would love to say that he's just going to be conservative and play man and then just trust his front four, but that's just not how AG works. Like he is going to want to at least try and test, if Jordan Love decides to go, he's going to try to test him and see how healthy is that groin. If it's Malik Willis back there, they're going to try to test him and see, okay, how up to speed is he on the NFL game and can he adjust on the fly, especially when it might be some, inclement weather as well.
Yep. Absolutely. And look, it's one of those things where if you're going to live in a high variance world and you're going up against a quarterback that presents those opportunities, you hope to be able to get off the field in those chances and be able to create some turnovers as well. Jordan Love has been one of the worst quarterbacks as far as EPA per play versus the blitz. The Lions defense has been very good as far as being able to send extra pressures and get the job done as well. This is going to be a test for Jordan Love, in my opinion, to where obviously you go through these aspects of being a younger quarterback, and even with the time that he spent maturing, you have these tests where you're going up against a difficult defense that can be able to send extra men at you or be able to take advantage of weaknesses in your game that you've shown. Is there a level of maturity, even though that you are limited, to be able to still make those right decisions on the down-to-down basis as well? I will quickly ask, just for both of you guys, is there one player specifically that you're watching, whether it's the Packers offense or Lions defense? Tyler, you can go ahead and start out.
It's really hard because I would love to just pick one of the wide receivers, but I've spent a lot of time trying to get Packers fans to get out of the who's our wide receiver one mentality, because there's 4 guys that could be a wide receiver one on any given week. So it's like that's the problem that they're presenting to opposing defenses. You don't want it to be like, oh, we can do the Bill Belichick, take away the wide receiver one and try to make the other guys who aren't as good beat you. The Packers are moving beyond that. So to try to pick one specific guy, I might actually then just go completely different and go with Tucker Kraft, because the way that they've moved Tucker Kraft around based on just 2024 alone, he's been one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And I'm not saying he's better than Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta, for example, or Mark Andrews, but in 2024, he has been. And Matt LaFleur is very creative with him, not even just on route running, but also on the blocking plays. The last, not the last play, but one of the last plays, the big play to Jaden Reed against the Jaguars, they had Jaden Reed chip an edge linebacker, and they used Tucker Kraft to come in motion to block the guy that Jaden Reed was chipping. So they had that designed for Tucker Kraft to come and pick that guy up so that Jaden Reed could just slip past everybody. Like, who thinks of that? Out of Florida.
Yeah.
And then obviously the yards after the catch, we've been calling Tucker Kraft the yak monster because he's got a legendary stiff arm. So it's fun to watch Tucker Kraft in space as well. So Tucker Kraft, I'll go with him.
That's a good choice. And look, we know that safety tandem for the Lions has been playing very well. So that's going to be a matchup certainly to watch. Miko, what about you?
It honestly is that. I was actually going to say it's the safety tandem, right? I think between Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, Kirby's been playing great in terms of, being that center field safety and getting a lot of turnovers. Brian Branch has continued to be that ultimate chess piece. I think that Aaron Glenn has been blessed with that. Again, if you ask him to play man up and you ask him to cover the slot receiver, he can do that. You ask him to man up and cover the tight end, he can do that. Like those two guys in tandem, I think make everything easier for their corners as well as the guys up front. So when you know that you have two safeties that are in the back and that can easily make, I say relatively easily make turnovers and force incompletions, like it makes everyone else play a little bit more aggressive. You'll start to see Terrion and Carlton Davis play more aggressive on the outside because they know that they have that safety help to be there to, again, help break up passes or create turnovers.
Yeah. Look, that makes total sense. We know Brian Branch is opportunistic. He's been that way since he victimized my Chiefs on opening night a year ago. And he's been one of the best safeties in the game at that, certainly, and being able to be around the ball when it matters most. And look, that's what a really good safety does. To your point about Tucker Kraft, being able to be that quarterback safety blanket as well, that's what a really good tight end does. So that middle of the field matchup is going to be incredibly important to watch as far as this upcoming game is concerned. So we can go ahead and flip to the other side of the ball as far as the Lions offense versus the Packers defense. And look, I think this is fascinating in the sense of, again, the Lions machine that it's been on offense. This is a team that's excellent in the trenches. Offensive line is built incredibly well. They've got the best running back tandem in the National Football League, and obviously David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jared Goff is playing quarterback at an elite level. You just got to say it. He just is. He has absolutely been able to distribute the ball effectively. Obviously, they've gotten J-Mo involved probably a little bit better than they did last year. He will be missing this game, of course, due to the suspension. But they've gotten other contributors, whether it's like Khalif Raymond, come over and just being able to create some things as well. And, of course, we know what Amon Ra and Sam Laporta can be as far as a tandem to lead their passing game. So we're going to start off here with you, Miko, and just talk about, without J-Mo, some of those secondary pass catching targets, and specifically how, when you look at the Packers defense, you feel it's best to try and attack them and be able to move the ball consistently.
Yeah, I mean, with J-Mo not being available, obviously the first name and the first person that I look to really kind of step up is Sam Laporta. Sam's had a fairly quiet season so far, especially when you compare it to what he was doing last year. Now, part of that is probably due to the fact that he's getting a lot more eyes on him. I think another part of that was when J-Mo was around, like J-Mo's game had elevated to such a point that he was getting open fairly consistently that Jared Goff wanted to reward him and really help, get him going in the way that he wanted to in his young career. So I think Sam is the person that you look at to kind of, again, help keep the passing game afloat and continue to excel in that regard. But I personally don't think that that's the way that the Lions are going to probably choose to attack the Green Bay Packers this Sunday. I think they're going to lean on their bread and butter, or in this case, peanut butter and jelly with, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Like they're going to rely on what is working, and what has worked so consistently this year is that tandem. Whether it's one of them, the last couple of weeks, it's been Ja, who's been being able to put up over 100 yards rushing in the last couple of games, or if it's Demo, who's doing that earlier on in the season and then kind of had a little bit of an injury. But that's like first and foremost how the Lions like to play football. And like I mentioned earlier, if it is actually inclement weather where it's a rainy day, Dan Campbell is going to get giddy and he's going to have no problem just being like, let's play old school smash mouth football and see if they can stop this tandem. And that's how I see, things kind of going, especially with Jared Goff sustaining like a minor ankle injury last week, not really wanting to put him in a tough situation where he has to be overly mobile with whether it's play action or any type of bootleg type of action. And also to kind of, tip my hat to the Green Bay Packers defense. Last year, Rashawn Gary gave Taylor Decker nightmares last year. So again, if you don't want that matchup to be an issue, if you don't want a repeat of what Arden Key was doing to Taylor Decker last week, you may just want to lean even heavier on the run game. And again, test this Packers, run defense that has actually given up, a lot of yards to some of these other teams this early in the season. So I expect the Lions to kind of test them there first.
Yeah, look, that makes total sense. starting with the trenches as far as the Lions is certainly the best way to go in that aspect. Tyler, talk to me a little bit about kind of the high variance world that your defense has also kind of lived in. A little bit issues down to down, not necessarily giving up some of those yards, as Miko was able to kind of refer to, but be able to turn the ball over. One of the guys that I thought was one of the best free agency signings this offseason, Xavier McKinney, been excellent for you guys being able to take the ball away. And that's one of the things where, look, sometimes the defense may not be the best between the 20s, but if it can be opportunistic in general, when you have the offense that can put points up on the board, that's a good pairing to live with. So talk to me a little bit about this defense. Specifically, I'd like to get into a little bit as far as the second level of your defense. I know there's been a lot of conversation about Quay Walker and in general his place within this linebacker room, but also you can talk about in general as far as this mismatch, or I shouldn't say mismatch, this matchup versus the trenches that the Lions bring to the table, specifically on the ground.
Yeah, so even when the Lions as a team weren't that great, like we respected the offensive line. The Lions have, like, over the last 6 or 7 years kind of quietly built arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. And we respect them as such, and that's what helps their running game, and obviously having two really talented running helps. So even just getting beyond the defensive line, it's going to be everybody in the front seven has to wrap up and tackle. There can't be a lot of missed tackles, and when we did our preview show, I had it that Gibbs is 6th and David Montgomery is tied for 13th in missed tackles forced. So the tackling part of it is absolutely paramount. Like, that's square one. You have to wrap up and tackle the first time you get hands on. Looking at Quay Walker, he missed last week due to the concussion protocol. Does sound like he's back this week. He's kind of auditioning right now to see if he's going to be kept around. Right now, him and Isaiah McDuffie were the starting middle linebackers for this season. But the other guy that has to be brought up is Edgerrin Cooper, the reigning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, Edgerrin Cooper, who has made plays from the backfield to 30 yards downfield. Even just last week, he had a strip sack on Trevor Lawrence and had a pass breakup against Christian Kirk, like 30 yards downfield, that he covered a ton of ground to get to. So over the last couple of weeks, it's really been Edgerrin Cooper who's been forcing his name into the stat sheet, into the announcer's booth. That's been drawing a lot of attention.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Look, I think that this is going to be a fascinating matchup, specifically in the fact that you add in that weather element. I think this is going to be where the Lions are going to line up and get some heavy personnel out there and say, let's go ahead and run it and see how often you guys are willing to stop it, especially in between the 20s, but specifically the red zone. But that's one of the places where you get down there, field gets condensed. At a certain point, you can put those extra guys in the box because you're not worried about anything over the top, and those windows get tighter, and you can maybe have those variants goes your way as well. So I'll be fascinated. I will ask you guys once again for an X factor just on each side of the ball. Tyler, if you guys want to start out as far as this defense for the Packers.
So Nico already said the name, and I had Rashawn Gary in my notes for this. We do like a bold prediction for the weeks every week, and I put in there for Rashawn Gary to replicate his 3-sack game and force some more fumbles like he did last year. If Rashawn Gary can wreck the game, that is one thing that can really take the Lions out of their element offensively.
Okay, yeah. What about you, Rico?
I'm gonna go David Montgomery, honestly. Again, like I said, Ja's been the one that's had the hot hand the last couple of weeks. They've been typically giving him more of the carries. But I think David Montgomery's due for a really big game. And I think so he's the guy that I kind of look at to probably get things going. It may eventually, they may eventually hand things off to Ja and let him, coast for a while as well. But I think Demo is going to be the guy that's going to kind of get things running early.
Okay. I like that pick for sure. So, of course, I do like to ask as far as, because we are Wednesday TV talking about it as far as best bets are concerned. For those that do not know, Miko, we had early on for the Bucks and Lions game. He hit on both of his picks, so we appreciate that. Always to be made money from that standpoint. Tyler, I did let you know that there was going to be a best bet segment as well. I will start out as far as this game. I do like to usually try and stay on both sides to keep it balanced. The one that I like is going to end up being actually Jahmyr Gibbs for 60-plus rushing yards. I think that this is going to be, once again, another time when they're going to line it up and try and get after the Packers front seven. a little bit of nasty weather out there. It's going to be a little bit of NFC North old school football. Let's go and stay in the trenches as far as that's concerned. And the other one, actually, you mentioned his name a little bit earlier, Romeo Dobbs. I like him as a wide receiver. I truly do. I think that he's not going to be the standout wide receiver one. That's not something that you guys really pride yourselves on or something that you guys emphasize. But he is somebody that I've always watched and liked his game from that aspect. So I have him down for 50+ receiving yards as well. So those are the two guys that I'm watching. Tyler, as the first time, I'll let you go ahead and start us off. What's your best bet for Lions versus Packers?
I actually love both of those, and I actually would agree with you on both of the overs. Obviously, Romeo Dobbs, like I brought up, his ability and what I've described him as is the most complete wide receiver on the Packers, even though he's not necessarily the best route runner. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he is the most trusted wide receiver. And by that token, I said like the most complete wide receiver. And as painful as it is to admit, I do like the over of Jahmyr Gibbs on 60 rushing yards, strictly because, and even with Miko bringing up David Montgomery potentially having the big game, the Packers struggle more with the outside runs. And that's where I think Jahmyr Gibbs is potentially a little bit better than David Montgomery. David Montgomery is more of like an in-between the tackles guy, whereas Jahmyr Gibbs seems like the guy who's going to get the edge. So, oh man, as painful as it is to say, even if it's on one carry, I could see a scenario where Jahmyr Gibbs racked up those 60 rushing yards really easily.
Mm-hmm. No, look, I don't blame you for that. And look, I really love that it is painful to say because that's a true rivalry right there.
That's like it's hard to say it. It's like, damn, I could see Jahmyr Gibbs going over 60 because like he could have just one carry where he rushes for like a 75-yard carry and gets tackled at the 5-yard line, because that is one of the areas where the Packers have struggled is the outside runs. But we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is one that, being an optimistic and realistic show, it is one that I could see happening.
Look, and I'm sure there's a lot of fantasy managers that'd be extremely happy if it does end up happening. But it's funny you did mention that earlier. But
it's such a conflicting feeling. But Packers win first, and then fantasy second. So
I believe me. I'm in too many fantasy leagues to say like I gotta just Chiefs, please take care of business, and I'll worry about everything else afterwards. Miko, as far as best bets for this game, how you feeling, man?
So I'm actually going with a similar bet to yours, DMac, but it's actually David Montgomery for over 60. Again, I think David's going to have a really big game, and I think this just kind of just feels like I said, like it feels like he's due. He's had a number of games where he's only got like 9 carries the last couple weeks, and I feel like with Ja getting so much attention, that I think people are going to kind of be leaning more towards that, and the defenses might be, perking up a little bit more when Ja's in the game. But you can't sleep on number 5, right? I know Ja's the one that we talk about. He's the one that's nicknamed Sonic, and Monty's the one that got the name Knuckles. But Monty's got a couple of those big 60, 50-yard runs as well. So you kind of can't sleep on him either when it comes down to him being in the backfield. So I really like the line for him to get over 60 yards in this game.
No, look, absolutely. This is a game in which you want to make sure that you protect either one of these quarterbacks with the run game, and I think Josh Jacobs is going to be incredibly key for the Packers side too, to make sure you guys stay ahead of schedule and not necessarily put Jordan Love in too many disadvantageous situations where he has to drop back versus some simulated pressures, a little bit of nice Aaron Glenn scheme to go ahead and create some chaos as far as the trenches are concerned. So all that's left here is to go ahead and pick this game. I will say first and foremost, I think that this is a very fascinating game. I'm going to lean with the Lions here. I think the Packers right now are just a little bit underpowered, and this can still be one of those things that can go either way. The weather, I think, could be a great equalizer, and that is something that could certainly lean a little bit more to the Packers' standpoint of being able to keep the game within reason and maybe limit some of the explosion that we've seen certainly from the Lions the last few weeks. But I think this is going to be a worthwhile game either way. And I certainly wouldn't bet, 2.5 or whatever, because honestly, no, I think this is going to be within 3 points no matter what, and a really fun game to watch. I'll go ahead and start out. Miko, give me your thoughts and who you're picking as far as Lions versus Packers.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I rarely pick against my own team. It's not, again, trying to be like a blind fan or anything like that. But I do think this is probably going to be one of the more tough games that the Lions have had on their schedule, the same way that, Minnesota was. And it's a good test. It's a good proving ground for the Lions to kind of cement, are they who everyone thinks they are, especially after the last couple of weeks, especially after blowing out Tennessee, after blowing out Dallas. you still have to take care of things in your own division. And Green Bay, just like Minnesota, is the next big challenge. So I expect this game to be close. I expect it to kind of be within like 2 to 3 points. I think when we did our picks for Pride of Detroit, I think I had the score like 29-27, something like that, going the Lions' way. So I expect this to be a fight all the way through. Like, I don't expect, again, as exciting as it is to see the Lions get out and kind of bludgeon people, I don't think that's going to be the case this week.
Absolutely. Tyler, what about you?
If I was going to bet on this game, I just wouldn't.
Same.
Lions minus 2.5 is not touching that. I wouldn't touch it. On Wisco Fanatics, we always do 2 score predictions every week. We do one from the head and we do one from the heart. So we do like a more analytical score prediction. Then we do one for it's more like an optimistic, if everything goes ideally correct, the way that we would want it to. So my score prediction from the head for our show was 27-24 Detroit. So that 3-point margin where it's like, if it's 2.5, like I'm not trying to touch a 3-point win. Like that's too close for comfort. But from the heart, I put on there 35-23 Green Bay, strictly in the most optimistic sense of if the Packers were able to do everything, if Jordan Love is fully healthy and everything like that. My bold prediction on the offensive side of the ball for the Packers this week was that the Packers are the first team to score 30+ on the Lions this week. But I strongly agree with you. It's the Lions are the best team that the Packers will have faced, and the Packers will be the best team that the Lions will have faced. So there's really no range of outcome that would shock me, whether either team won by double digits or if this game came down to a last-second field goal. Like, none of it would surprise me because, like we've talked about this entire show, there are so many playmakers on both sides of the ball for both teams. It's just going to be a great football game regardless.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, this is what, in my opinion, is the best division in the National Football League. Your 2 teams are at the top of it as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of like a 24-23 type of just classic at Lambeau Field. Some rain coming down, a little bit messy, but it's Tennessee North football that you guys, I'm sure, will look forward to and enjoy. So once again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Obviously, Win the Day TV coming on Max Marquee Matchups. Make sure to check out Miko Scott over at Pride of Detroit, doing great things as always, making sure you break it down Lions football on a week in and week out basis. Make sure to check out Tyler over at Wisco Fanatics. My apologies. Wisco Fanatics. Break it down not only just Packers football, Wisconsin, obviously football and basketball, Bucks, and the whole 9 yards. Appreciate you guys both for coming on. Anything before we go ahead and get on out of here?
No, man. Looking forward to a good game.
Just going to be a good football game. Yep, I agree.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm kicking my feet up because the Chiefs play on Monday Night Football. I'm watching all the Sunday games, but this one will be on the big screen for sure. All right. Once again, thank you guys. Make sure you guys check out everything on Win the Day TV. Also, make sure you tune into our playback room. We'll be having the live betting sessions for a Sunday, throughout the entirety of this slate. Obviously with Sosa Spin and everybody over there. Once again, for Tyler and Miko, I'm DMac Wake 316. This is Max Marquee Matchups for Week 9, man. Peace out. Enjoy Sunday.